16, A Marvellous Mechanical Flying Machine. "Caw!" gasped Mr. Penguin. Edith gave the cuckoo plane a final polish with a clean hanky from her bum bag. The clockwork bird looked sleek and shiny and ready for action, with a small propeller in its beak. Its wonky eyelid was no longer twitching, and there was space for a pilot and passengers in the back. "Lyle!" cried Mr. Penguin. "This is brilliant!" Colin was grinning from ear to monobrow and scampered underneath it to check out the well-polished cogs and mechanisms. His notepad slid out from under the aircraft. "How does it work?" "Easy!" Lyle wiped her greasy hands down the front of her now filthy trousers. Dieter, Mr. Penguin noticed, was watching in horror. He was still as neat as a pin, without even a splodge of oil on his pyjamas. Lyle slotted an enormous metal key into a lock, rather unfortunately positioned under the tail, where the bird's bottom should be. "We pop this in here, wind it up, whip the key out, give the plane a good shove, and off we go," Lyle explained. "The levers inside will help keep us on course. To fly back from the fortress, she just needs to be wound up again and given a shove." Mr. Penguin thought that all of this sounded marvellous, but something was bothering him. He took a closer look at the space for passengers. "But how are we all going to fit in there?" he asked. "Oh, no," said Edith. "I'd love to go and get Gordon, but there isn't room for us all. Dieter and I are going to stay here and keep watch with the telescope. We'll light a bonfire at the top of the mountain if we need you to come back in a hurry." That sounded like quite a sensible plan. Lyle grinned at Mr. Penguin. "That means you, me and Colin are off to the fortress." "I see," Mr. Penguin gulped. "But who's flying the cuckoo?" Lyle handed him a pair of flying goggles. A short while later, Mr. Penguin found himself sitting in the pilot's seat of the cuckoo plane. Lyle was quickly running through the flying instructions with him. A fierce and icy wind howled all around them, and Lyle was having to shout. They were at the top of one of the steepest roads in the village. It ran straight through the town square and finished rather terrifyingly at the end of a small cliff with a sheer drop to the valley below. Lyle thought this road would make an excellent runway for the plane. Mr. Penguin thought he might vomit into his satchel. "Okay," Lyle said eventually, smiling. Mr. Penguin hadn't heard a word of her instructions, but he nodded anyway. Beside him, Colin's eyes gleamed with the bright, giddy shine of someone who thought that this outrageous, dangerous and bonkers thing they were about to do sounded like the most wonderfully relaxing way to spend an evening. "I'll be right behind you," yelled Lyle against the wind. "I'll be ready to wind her up again mid-flight, should we need to give her a bit more oomph." Mr. Penguin nodded again. He'd have liked to have had said something very brave and confident, the sort of thing Butch Peril always said in his books before a dangerous mission, but he was trying to keep his breakfast and mid-afternoon snack firmly in his tummy. He really wanted to run back to the bakery and hide under one of the twins' beds, preferably Dieter's, as it was a lot tidier. But the thought of Gordon kidnapped and all alone stopped him. He had to be rescued. Mr. Penguin swallowed hard and adjusted his bow tie. Lyle wound up the cuckoo plane's bottom, then gave Edith and Dieter a nod. They removed the two heavy blocks in front of the wheels, and Edith set the propeller whirring. Then she and Dieter gave the machine an almighty shove, and whoosh! Off they went, rattling down the street. Mr. Penguin, Colin and Lyle shuddered and jittered about. The wind slapped angrily at their cheeks, and their teeth chitter-chattered in their mouths and beak. "This is amazing," said Colin's pad. He was grinning madly beside Mr. Penguin's right flipper, his eyes watering with delight. Lyle hooted and hollered, yelling, "Here we go!" And just like that, Mr. Penguin, Colin and Lyle found themselves flying off a cliff through the air in the tiny cuckoo plane.